Wait, so you're telling me that the classes after us just went home hungry after class?
Oh shoot.
Hi, welcome to Blood Talk Small Talk, where we aim to provide a deeper understanding of the teamwork it takes to ensure quality care in a healthcare setting. Tune in for a mix of serious science and casual conversation, and you might be surprised to learn just how much goes on behind the scenes. I'm your host, Mars.
And your host, Peach.
On today's episode, we'll be diving into the topic of the CLS training program and all of our different experiences. We've invited some of my classmates and good friends, Ha and Sun, to share what it was like during our year of training together.
Yes, then the trainings are the critical phase for anybody who entered the professions. And we would like to thank you, both of you, for joining us today because your experience will be very helpful for our new trainee who coming to join the programs and, letting them know what to prepare and what to expect during the programs. Would you guys like to introduce yourself a little bit about, what your background and what made you decided to join the CLS training program?
Ladies first.
Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Ha. I was in the same CLS class as Mars. So that was in 2015 to 2016. So it's been quite a while since we've been CLSs. I work in microbiology. And that's all I've ever worked in, so I have a micro brain.
Very good, because we have 2 blood bankers and 1 core, so we needed a micro.
Okay.
Yeah, it balances it out, yeah. Okay. My name is Sun. I also was a student at the same time. I did training in the same time as Ha and Mars. And I am working now in a hospital blood bank. I did have like a short stint where I did like part-time in flow cytometry, but that was like very short-lived. Eventually they kind of outsourced it to a different hospital. And now I'm full-time blood bank and I love it.
Did you like the flow more or blood bank more?
Definitely blood bank. Flow, I think Flow, I did it for the experience, but then I quickly learned that it was very like repetitive and it was a very limited scope as well. Like we only did so many markers. So it was very frustrating. Yeah, I didn't.
I was contemplating on just cutting you out if you answer something else.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Or like just dub over it. Like,
yeah, just be like, it's blood bank.
All right, so let's see. In recent years, California has changed the pathway for individuals to become a CLS. Now, training programs have popped up all over the state. So we all did the same program through the same school, which was a post-bac 1-year program with a clinical internship. There's a link down in the description for the California Department of Health and like all of the information of all of the training programs here in California. But let's see. So during your guys' year of training, what was the most challenging aspect of the program for you?
For me, it was just finding balance. Finding enough energy after, spending time at the hospital, like a full day at the hospital, like time to study, and then also have a social life. That was very important to me. So balancing all 3 things was probably, and then, getting enough sleep as well. And then, so I moved to, I like relocated for the program. And so that was like my first time living like on my own, without roommates. So, it was a balance of like, living alone for the first time as well. So it was just balancing all that. So, yeah.
So a lot of changes at the same time.
Yeah. So that was balance.
What about you, Sun?
For me, there was, difficulty to balance, but I think unlike Ha, I basically like min-maxed, just minimize the social life and then maximize, as much sleep as I could get, even though that wasn't a lot. And a lot of studying. I think it was a little too much. If I could do it again, I'd definitely dial it back a bit. But another thing was also, that was like my first exposure to like a professional workplace environment that wasn't like work study, that wasn't tutoring kids at Kumon or something. So it took some getting used to. I didn't realize that, I should have been approaching it kind of like as like an extended interview. But
You're talking about like when you're interview for the internship.
well, actually, like being there, like the fact that you were in like a workplace, it took me some time to get the kind of like my mental shift from like I'm not just training here, like I'm actually working at like a professional place, and there's certain standards you have to uphold yourself to. You can't really just act like a student all the time. Like these people, like this is like their livelihood, so like you kind of have to be careful balancing. At least I found, a little difficulty balancing like my need or desire for like learning, but also their need to, output results and stay on top of their work load. So just like a lot of, I guess, like social learning. Yeah.
For me, I think I wanted to we'll kind of talk a little bit about like the housing issues. Like I just kind of actually forgot about this. I just only remembered it now when her mentioned that like she has to relocate. So for the program, I actually was staying with my family, but I wanted my privacy and kind of wanted to take the programs like seriously. So I want to move out on my own for the program. I actually found a place. I moved out. I was subleasing from another person. And then like after just 2 months through kind of through in actually 2 months into the programs, I guess my landlord, the actual landlord found out that this person subleasing and she didn't get a permit. So we got kicked out. I got kicked out in the middle of the night and tomorrow was the final.
No. How'd you do on the final though?
I didn't fail.
That's a win.
That's all I remember.
Which subject was this? Which subject?
Hematology. Like the first one,
'cause
like
it's
the 2 months. Like it's like right at the meeting. I was so stressful. I feel like I'm gonna fail. I'm gonna fail. I'm gonna fail. That's like the only thing I remember in my head when I was testing it. Because when I'm supposed to be studying, I was basically moving. Because if I don't move out, so they told me on Wednesday, and they said you have to be out by Friday. So obviously, Wednesday I can't really move because on Thursday my training start at 6 a.m. And on Wednesday I have to work, so I didn't get home to see or read that notice until midnight. So I go to school from 6 to 2, and then I work from 3 to 11:30.
Oh, I didn't know you worked. That's crazy.
So that was like my life for the whole year. So by the time I get, yeah, because we're not lucky, we did not get paid.
Yeah.
But anyway, so it's okay. But like that aside, so I didn't see the notice to leave the place until midnight, basically. And then I was like, I can't do anything. I just have to kind of go to sleep. And then I let my family know that I'm gonna have to somehow pack everything and leave by like today, because they said they locked the place on Friday. So I basically went and leave.
Aren't there like squatter laws or whatever? I mean, I guess at that time this is so much you wouldn't know anyways, but like that seems like they can't do that. Like you didn't know, right? That it was subleased.
I didn't know. So I just called the lady up when I see the advertisement for like, oh, we need or we renting out this room. So I was just like, okay, that's good. So I know it was a sublease because she said that, she was lying. I found out later. She's saying that her daughter moved out. So that's why now I have an empty room that I want to sublease. I was like, okay, kind of makes sense, So that's what I didn't really question it. So I moved into that room, and then only 2 months in, I get kicked out. So yeah.
I'm sorry that happened to you.
So again, just
that is pretty bad.
Yeah, I passed. That's all I remember. I don't think I remember anything when I was taking the test. I'll be like, oh, I have to look for a new place.
Just repress that memory. There's no need for that anymore.
If they didn't talk to you afterwards, you're fine.
I really didn't remember until Has just mentioned, like, I had to
Sorry.
relocate. And I was like, oh, yeah, I had to relocate, like, immediately.
I'm sorry to remind you of what
Oh, yeah.
happened.
The trauma. I guess I was suppressing it so deep that I don't
Yeah, just
even
stuff it back
recall
down.
it
Stuff
at
it back
all.
down. You're in a good place now. You have a podcast. You
guess
have a
I-
podcast.
It was a bad dream. It's fine.
Yeah, it was a bad dream. So I guess, but I don't think I can stop now because it's gonna remind me every single time. But it's okay. It's a part of a. I guess it's a funny story to tell now. Like, we survived.
It's
But yeah,
impressive.
it was.
You definitely juggled more
Great
than
show of
we did.
resilience. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah,
I would have
thank
just
you. Well,
caved. I would just, yeah.
I contemplate though. I was walking in and feel like, should I tell a professor? Feel like, can I retake the test or like take it at another time? Like this was happening to me, and I'm basically like a wreck right now because I was busy looking for a place. I can't really study. Everything was kind of
That would have been pretty
messed up
reasonable.
like, in here.
Yeah, I think so.
I
Yeah,
think
but-
she's forgiving enough to be like, oh my god, yeah.
You could just show them like the notice. Like, look at this. Like overnight.
Yeah, like it's basically right because I didn't see it. I don't know when they posted it, but I told you, I didn't see it until like midnight, basically Thursday. You're gonna have to be out before Friday. But like so just a reminder: if anybody have to relocate for your program, just really look at like a secure and safe place for yourself. Yeah, don't repeat the mistake that I made. I'm happy that it doesn't happen to you, huh? But yeah, what about how do you feel like if it's like the training program it prepare you adequately for you to become a CLS and pass the board exam?
Definitely it was adequate to pass the board exam. Although I feel like, well, I want to say that it's up to the person, but if the majority of the people pass, it seems like the program's doing a good job. So usually they also are pretty good at selecting, I think, but there's always like a couple of rotten
Bad apples.
but
rotten egg.
yeah, there's always like one or two, but for the majority of them, yeah, it prepares you pretty well. And then in terms of work, I think so too, especially, if you happen to train at the same place that you'll end up in, that's a big, leg up on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with
So
Sun.
our class
Yeah.
was
Go ahead.
So our class was pretty small, right? We had like 20 classmates. But since we all stayed basically at the hospital we trained at, well, Ha moved, but since we all stayed at the hospital that we trained at for a while, as the program went on, we saw it grow bigger. So at least at our year, we had a 100% pass rate. So at least we could still say it.
Nice.
But yes, we did.
I wonder what year was
Um,
the first one to not have the 100%.
I think if I recall talking to some of the students, though, it was because of a health issue. Wow.
Oh, sorry, I don't know.
It was because of a health issue that the person didn't do so hot. But what I really liked about our program was our instructors were very knowledgeable about the ASCP. So at least like during our chemistry didactic, they really liked to be like, oh, they like to ask this question on the ASCP. And then even our micro instructor, same thing. Like I don't know if you guys remember, but our
I do
final was
remember.
basically like a whole bunch of questions that popped up. I was like, oh my god, I'm so glad she had us study this and stuff. Yeah.
Oh, the macro final?
Well prepared. Yeah, no, the microbiology final, but the macro final, yeah, that one was pretty good too.
Yeah.
That was like I think all from the BOC. As Ha is talking about, like the structure of our program, right? We rotate 1 year around the hospital through different departments, but the schooling side of it is we have didactic portions for each of the main subjects. So that's hematology, blood bank, chemistry, and microbiology. So the macro final, as you would call it, is the big final at the end of the year, which is cumulative of all the subjects. We had to pass that before they would submit our information and stuff to the state, which would allow us to take the exam. and then get our license after. Oh, and by the way, the exam that we're talking about is the ASCP.
Yeah, because I think there was a time where a CLS program, when you graduate and taking the exam, you're taking the California licensing exam. And if you wanted to have a national license, then you would have to take additional exam, which is the ASCP. But after, or I think a few years before you guys here, the California is canceling their own state licensing exam and use ASCP exam as their state licensing.
Oh, we got
So
lucky
kind of
then.
be in line with a lot of other states, because in our I guess previous class, they only get California. They do have options to take ASCP, but I don't think they want, since they're working in California. None of the people I know have retaking for the ASCP. I only know one who moved. I mean, they end up having to take it, the same move outside of state. Yeah. And what do you think the interaction is, or do you like your interaction between like the trainee
Oh,
and between trainee and trainer, and between like the trainee, or like, you guys and the professor? Like, how do you like, all those interactions?
well, I mean, we have two
Or don't
co-trainees
like?
here
What?
present.
Yay! Yay!
I'm talking
I
about
guess I
Mars and
can
Sun.
assume that you guys do like each other enough that you still hang out.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're right. We trained together at the same. That's what Ha's indicating. How you
Yeah.
and I
Yeah,
trained
yeah,
at the
yeah.
same hospital together.
Wow.
Oh,
It went
no,
Over your head.
Huh?
I thought you were talking about the fact that us three were in the same class. But yeah, okay, so same class, but also Sun and I trained at the same hospital. But sorry,
Yeah.
continue.
And then for me, I trained with Steve. Steve. So,
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
and if you watched the previous episode that Steve was here, so if you haven't, go back to watch that one after this one.
yeah, I like to say that Steve is my the brother I never wanted. Like, we were close like that, but like I never wanted a brother, and I still probably don't want him as a brother, but he is the brother I never wanted.
It's okay. We love Steve
Yeah,
for
yeah,
who
for sure.
he is.
Yeah. For sure. And what do you like or not like about like the interactions, or like, do you think it's enough interaction between the trainees, or you think that people are just too focused in the training that they don't?
I thought it was awesome. I thought it was great.
I think in our year was amazing. We had
yeah.
a very outgoing person that was like the linchpin that kind of like tied us all together.
I guess
That
one
was
of
Paul. That was
that was
you.
here.
Yeah.
He's looking, huh?
And I would see when we started training like the other, like following years, cohorts or whatever you call them, like, and I would ask them, like, oh, you guys are like hanging out or anything? And this was even like before COVID. And they're like, no, not really. And it's like, oh, that's kind of sad. Like I felt bad for them that they didn't have that, because, I didn't think I cared so much about it, but I think it did, it was something to look forward to. And, some of these people, Mars, and then a handful of others I still kind of keep up with. And it was like good to have like that camaraderie.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of people, we might not have kind of internalized it the same way, but everyone had some form of kind of like stress, workload, something new. Some people were working at the same time. Some people had moved. My, kind of side of it was like a new workplace environment. And it was just nice that everyone, we had a spot where everyone was kind of like
let the
connected.
steam
Yeah.
off a little bit.
Yeah. And then, with regards to like the trainers and like say even like the professors, like they were very understanding. A lot of them did have experience being CLSs, even supervisors. And I think they all kind of wanted us to do as well as possible. And you could definitely feel that.
I think to continue off of how our class was pretty close with one another, I also like to ask them every year when they come in, like how, if like getting to know the rest of their classmates, networking, because the CLS world is very small, right? You want to make good connections and network. The year after us, though, I recall hearing that they were like so competitive with each other, and that's why they didn't get close at all. I just wanted to say, like, my favorite part about our class was before we took the micro final, and Chelsea was like, "Remember, guys, mediocrity together. This exam is perfect." That was my favorite thing. But and then the trainers, they were really good too, because there were a lot who also did the program before us, and so they would also point out for us like, oh, make sure you know this for the exam and stuff. It's really one of the benefits of also people ending up at the hospital that they trained at. Yeah.
How do you think you will survive the program without any interactions with
Steve?
any of the classmates?
No, I
Like,
would
you know,
not have.
because, you know, like during like the COVID, we kind of moved to like a more visual class,
Yeah.
right? Like if you,
Virtual. Yeah.
virtual class.
Yeah, I don't think that would have. No. The answer is no.
I would have
Can you
failed.
imagine yourself like doing like online classes and like just go to?
I wouldn't be
Isn't
motivated.
it
to
still
program.
online? Isn't it still online and then they just come in for like
Like the exam.
tests and stuff? Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow,
Whoa.
that's
It's
crazy.
sad.
They
I
didn't
heard
get to like
they-
sweat in the classroom during summer.
Oh my
Oh,
god.
man.
And
Freeze.
freeze during winter.
We brought blankets.
You guys
to
brought like
class.
towel. Yeah, blankets.
Yeah.
It's mediocrity together.
Wait, so you're telling me that the classes after us just went home hungry after class?
Oh
Um,
shoot. Yeah.
You know what? Oh, like when I was
Oh,
telling
yeah.
you guys that
They had
I have
food.
to work. I have to work right after training. I purposely do not schedule or ask to not be scheduled on Friday, unless if it's Friday evening shift, like starting after 6, because I purposely do that so I can go out, like just having lunch with
It's nice to
like
have
my
it, yeah.
classmate,
And also
and a
the
lot of them we
oh,
still
sorry.
like hang out like friends. So it's very good to be able to let out some steams, and cause it's like the people who going through it together, like whatever you're having a hard time understanding, or you know, like the people like on the same boat. So it was really easy to connect with them.
That's
And yeah. But what were you gonna say, Mars?
Oh, going out to eat after finals or midterms was like I don't know, something so we could all complain about it and be like, oh, thank God we're done. like you said, it's nice to have someone to relate. In a couple like Chris and Michael's year, Michael really tried hard to get his classmates to go out to eat, and there were a few that would, but it's definitely not as much as Ha was able to get out. Like almost almost always, pretty much everyone. It was only our macro final, a couple of people didn't show up, but I think they were a little bit upset about how it went for them. But yeah, our class was super tight knit. And did you guys know next year it's 10 years, we're gonna make a 10-year reunion?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow, it's 10-year for you already.
I thought I've only been working for like 8
Wow.
years.
As a CLS, yeah. For
I mean,
like vested
Oh, I guess that's
2025. It would have been 10 years this fall that we started the program.
starting 10 years, yeah.
Let's not think about that.
I know.
Let's not think about that.
When I was talking to one of my coworkers who was training one of the students today, they were asking me about when I trained in Immuno, if I got any hands-on experience, and I was like, shit, like, that was so long ago, I don't even remember. And the person who trained me, both of the people who trained me in there are gone. So I'm just like, yeah. So you get some good trainers, you get some bad trainers, but we just hope that at least because you rotate people, hopefully it's not a dedicated per one, you can experience how everybody's workflow is different. Yeah.
So then, do you think like your didactic portion and the clinical rotations, do you think both were necessary, or do you think you don't really need the critical and you can make do with just the didactic part? Or do you think it was a good combination?
Yeah, both
None
were.
of it was necessary. What? Oh, I thought we were all on the same page here.
Oh,
Oh, shit.
I mean, I thought both were
Yeah, why do you think
necessary.
it's not
I
necessary?
mean, the didactic
Yeah.
portion got you the license to even be able to work, and then yeah, the the clinical rotation. I mean, that just basically that's the rest of your career. Prepared you for that. So that, yeah. I don't know if you
Yeah.
have anything to add, but
Like
yeah.
for me, I think I like the combinations because it's kind of like something you learn in the book and then you can get a hands on, so it's reinforce your memory more and then you see how important it is. But the only thing that I think it would had improved if somehow we can align like the didactic part and the critical rotation to be like in school you're learning about blood bank and then you go to the hospital it's also blood bank, so you can kind of carry one and like kind of make that connection, right? Like versus like you maybe learning in the class in like micro and then go into the rotation you're doing hematology.
I think there are some programs that are like that. I think like the smaller programs where there's only like I don't know. I think like, I don't want to, I guess, drop names, but I remember there was one where like, they accepted very limited people. And it was almost like the hospital itself put together everything. They had like doctors do like the, what is it, like the didactic portion. And I think with that, hopefully they would have them, learning at the same time. But then at the same time, there's also like kind of like hour requirements for each kind of rotation versus the didactic lecture portion. So I don't know if, the requirements also kind of make it harder and, inevitably just stagger the subject.
Yeah, I think that's why, because there are requirements of like how many hours you have to spend on bench for this department, and then like it's like how much we have time in like for the I guess physical year that we can spend on each subject. So I think that part would make it challenge for like to align them together
Yeah.
when there's a big program kind of like us, because we kind of grow a lot
Oh yeah.
in
I
the
think-
programs.
I think it is very important to have both because just yesterday actually I had 2 phone calls from 2 different doctors in which I was like, "Oh my god, I'm glad that I was the one who picked up this call because it was kind of like a big complex question. One of the doctors, that way I don't have to go about both, was basically the CBC was not giving results for hemoglobin because the specimen was lipemic. And I guess they had just transfused this patient, so they wanted to see if their hemoglobin had gone up. And so they were wondering, like, how can we get a hemoglobin result, or why is it constantly saying not valid? And so as I was trying to explain it, she was just like, "What is that? What do you mean? Like, what is it?" I was like, "Okay, so like a lipemic specimen is basically there's chylomicrons in the plasma, and so it's interfering with the analyzer." And she's like, "What are those?" And I was like, lipids, cholesterol. The cholesterol is interfering with the way that the analyzer is measuring, and so we cannot give an accurate value, and that's why. And she's like, "So is there any way that we can actually do this?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, we have to do saline replacement. So if you can order another CBC, send it down, and then I'll let the following tech know because it's at the end of the shift to perform a saline replacement on this patient." But again, like if this is something that it rarely happens where they actually
But
call and
Can you
ask
do
for
the
that.
centrifuge one, like the ultra high speed centrifuge, so you can separate?
For CBC, it has to be whole blood, right, in the EDTA. So if you separate it, it's not going to. But yeah. So
the
the way that
CBC.
this would be done is basically you spin down the specimen, take out all of the plasma, replace it with saline, and then that's how they can get the accurate hemoglobin result.
Yeah, I guess, to kind of piggyback on that, it kind of paints the doctors somewhat in like a bad light, but I think the reality is that we do get a lot of questions. I think actually for us, for me and Mars and I, sorry, we definitely rely more on the theory, the didactic portion, because a lot of our doctors are like residents. They're like training. So because of that, they do have a lot of questions where, either they don't have the experience to know these things, or there's so much that, being a doctor entails. And I think specifically with like blood banking and transfusion, a lot of them, they don't even understand like how like blood compatibility works. And I don't think it's like a dig on, their intellect or whatever, but I think it's just, I think that's why we're there, to provide the bridge between, not a bridge, but like to fill in the blanks for them. Because they have to do, they're conducting like an orchestra, and, we're the ones who know how to play the instruments. So,
Hey,
yeah.
what
and we
instrument
don't
are
know
we?
how to do that unless, saxophone,
Oh, really?
piano, I don't know. Something with the hands. What's like a pipette looking like
I was
instrument?
gonna say we're the drums,
It would be
dude.
like a trumpet or something, yes? Oh,
Huh?
okay.
Oh, but I do agree with that. There's so much that they have to learn, and that's why the tagline is teamwork to ensure quality care in a healthcare setting, right? Everybody has to work as a team in order to give the patient the best care that they deserve. And so that's why we all go through different schooling and specializations of what we learn. That way we can help, right?
Yeah. Because
But
we can't do what the doctor can, and
we
the doctor can't do what we can do. So we'll kind of together, like providing the care as a team.
Yeah. If there are any doctors who would happen to be watching, don't feel bad asking questions. I actually really like when they ask questions, because then it enforces that, it's like they care about what we're doing, and they understand that we're not just like running, releasing, like we're actually
It's a lot of work
knowledgeable
involved.
in what we
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. So then, well, if you have to look back in the program, what do you wish you had known before you start the program? Is there anything you can think of?
I could think of one thing.
Uh-huh.
So I think I went into this field, and I think a lot of people had this misunderstanding that like, oh, we want to do healthcare, something with the sciences, save lives, but we don't want to deal with like other people. For one, patient interaction is scary. Bedside manner is scary. But then I was under the impression that I didn't even have to like talk to people, which is why, like, I mentioned earlier how being in like the professional workplace environment was difficult, because I had to learn how to talk to people. I've always had this weird thing where like, my elders, Mr., Mrs., last name, they'd be like, no, use my first name. Like, what? No, that's weird. And I would do my own way. And I would realize that sometimes you have to do things, I guess you have to be accommodating other people, which has nothing to do with the program. I guess it's just a me thing.
No,
Well,
in
I mean, it's
actuality,
important to be aware of what you are getting yourself into, not just in the program, what you also kind of expected after the program, right? Because that's what you are, like the end goal is.
Yeah, I've definitely had to basically like change my own expectations to fit what was, the program ended up being and what the career ended up being, which was great because it prevented me from, becoming very jaded and like kind of just phoning in. So definitely I had to grow into the field, but because of that, I really do enjoy it now. But yeah, be warned. You have to talk to people. You got to be on the phone. It's gonna be nerve-wracking a couple times.
sometimes
On
it's
the phone
face
is
to
not on your
face.
smartphone, not you're
Oh,
facing
yeah.
in on your, not that title phone, but like on the
Mhm.
phone with physicians, with
Yeah.
the nurses, trying to provide the care. What about you, Ha? What do you think you wish you know before joining the program?
I can't really think of anything. I think whatever happened, I did expect it.
Interesting. What do you expect though?
I mean, all the training and all the I guess the dynamics of the lab. I already kind of got, because I worked as a lab assistant before this, so I kind of knew. I guess the only difference is just it's from a CLS's perspective, but I already expected that, so I don't think I could add anything to that question. It was everything I expected. Yeah.
That that's good to know too that like, you are well prepared. That's good to hear that there are, people like you who really well prepared to be in the program because I wasn't one of them.
I wish I
Really,
remembered how to study before
yeah.
I went back to school. That's all.
What subject did you have to what's concerned you the most, Mars?
Oh, like just starting the program again after a year or like how many years gap between undergraduate, remembering how to study again was the struggle.
Oh, just like remember the motion of how to study again, not
Yeah,
just
it's like
study the stuff.
how did I even remember things? Like what is the process of studying? Like throughout the year, I think I didn't even get into the groove of studying until like halfway.
Um,
Maybe that's why you have a good time during the program. Because half the year you didn't have to study.
No, I was studying, but it was a lot harder. And then when I figured out what actually worked for me and helped me retain information, yeah, the first
So hard.
couple.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So how was there any like misconceptions or anything that you expect, about the program, and then when you actually during the training, it wasn't like that.
Can't think of anything.
oh,
Mm.
I could
Just
think
go
of
What about
like
you,
one.
Sen?
I could think of
Yes.
something on that front. I think I went into the program hoping that I would become like a microbiology
Oh.
CLS, microbiologist or whatever they call themselves. And then I quickly learned, I think I was actually a lab assistant in micro prior to going to the program for like a year almost. And, I was like, oh, I really like this work, but it was busy work. And I learned that I really enjoyed busy work. If I could be a lab assistant for CLS pay, I would love to do that. No pressure, just, exactly what you have to do. Very low kind of stakes. But yeah, the
But it's
actual micro
repetitive
work,
though.
what was that?
Do you like that? It's kind of repetitive.
I did like the
You don't.
repetitiveness. Yeah, I like the routine. There's a comfort in it. But what I didn't like was the microscopy work. It was always straining on my eyes. My eyes get dry easily too, and the smell. Good God, I'm glad the micro is like kind of like walled off. They got like doors and
Brought up
stuff.
another page in
Dude,
my life.
sometimes when you go to the women's bathroom in the morning, it's like, whew, micro smells fresh this morning. I couldn't walk through the hallway.
Fresh cultures or whatever.
Oh, tortillas, grapes.
Yeah, you guys aren't
Yes.
cultured.
Oh.
You're not cultured enough to appreciate the smells.
It's an acquired
Well,
taste.
oh wow, I didn't know that we need that. It's okay. Well, actually, I can relate to Sun a lot because I going into the program thinking that after I graduate, I want to work in micro because prior to this, I was a TA in micro lab.
Oh,
Yeah, and now I don't think I can identify E. coli. Like
Yeah, I think that's the
then I
common
like
kind of
gram
like.
negative rod.
I think that's like the CLS pipeline for a lot of people, micro to CLS. Micro undergrad labs, and you're like, oh, I feel like I could do this, for like a living.
I
And
think it's
then
because it was the fun subject during undergrad, and that what you kind of familiar the most out of all the other departments. I think micro is one that I guess at least for me I get more exposure
yeah,
or closest to the undergrad.
yeah, I think you're right on that. Like, there's no chemistry equivalent to the undergrad. There's no, I
Yeah.
guess, like blood bank equivalent. I remember doing like a little like cheap Amazon $20 like we stir it with the little
Blood type.
toothpicks. Yeah, for your blood type. You're like, oh wow, look at that. But it's funny, like the actual stuff kind of does work like that. It's just more regulated.
I love this conversation. It brought back a lot of memory that I had suppressed.
Hopefully they
I
were
was
happy
like,
memories. Hopefully these were happy memories.
sure, you tell me.
They were just stored, boxed, storage.
I was thinking that I've type O until the program, even in my birth certificate.
oh,
Really?
oh my God!
So like during the program, right, we have to draw each other, and then we are typing our own blood. So then I type, and I was like, wait, I did something wrong because I already know like what my blood type is, and I'm trying to get the two to be the same as what I have in my head. they keep doing and redoing it like 3-4 times. Like something is wrong. So I call the takeover and be like, watch me. I'm doing a blood type. So I'm doing, A, B, the whole thing. And then he's like, yeah, that's correct. So what's your type? And then I said, oh, and he's like, no, read the tube. What's your type? And then I was like, but I'm type O. In my birth certificate, it said type O. And then it's like,
You know what that
maybe
means?
you get somebody else blood. Like,
Yeah,
even maybe we swap within like our group, like when we were drawing,
lab incident report.
we redrew the blood, and I was really not a type O.
So whoever typed you when you were born, whoever did your
Yeah.
cord blood really screwed up, and
Yeah.
That was
you
a
should
pre-analytical error.
malpractice.
Yep. Yeah. So I was like, wow. Yeah, thank you for sharing all your, experience and all this like story with during your training. So what aspects of the program that you think it could be improved, if you have any suggestions for the programs to improve.
I think if there was I don't know if there is, but I feel like if there was more like standardization between the training sites, the hospitals themselves, or the labs, and the didactic portion, or like just someone that would oversee both things, so that I guess like the standard is more standardized, because which would be kind of hard, but I feel like there could be at least some like requirements, because it sounds like, listening to other students at the time and like their experiences, like it seemed a lot of times like it was like totally different, in terms of like the levels of like hand-onness, how much autonomy you had. It depended from, location to location, even trainer to trainer. And at least within our hospital, there was never really like, except for like one rotation or maybe two, like the majority of them, there wasn't like very rigid structure. And it could be a good or a bad thing, but for me, I would have preferred more, like knowing what I was getting myself into, for each thing, so I could be better prepared for it, expectations, managing them. Yeah.
So when Steve was a guest, he was actually talking about how all of our sister hospitals that are part of the program are working towards standardization. And so I just wanted to let you know, because this episode
cool.
is not out yet during this time of recording,
Yeah.
but hopefully it's something that we can see in the upcoming years. But do agree. Because well, actually what I kind of liked about having the differences is that at least during our class, when we all got together, we could discuss how things were, like how did they do it at their hospital, or like stuff like that, because some, they have different SOPs, and this is something that I also kind of like to look into. So I like to lurk the Med Lab Professional subreddit or something like that, and I see a lot of stuff about like hematology, and it's interesting to see like one of them that was just kind of like is the way that they make their body fluid cytospins. And I talked to our tech 2 about it. I was like, so this is how they do it, but obviously we do it different here. But they were also talking about how their slides were not coming out as good. And so
funny.
yeah, so we she and I discussed it, and it's like, but there are also like a bunch of different factors, like what's the RPM of the centrifuge, how long are they centrifuging it, what type of body fluid. But it's just interesting to like keep updated and see again how other places do it, because you never know, there might be a better way. I mean, even though, we're just ones and we can't change the procedure, it just helps you kind of keep in mind, like, if you need to troubleshoot too, like, what could you possibly do? Or specifically look for in our SOP, because sometimes they don't cover everything during your training, because it's like a case-by-case basis, right? Like, if you don't encounter it during that time, sometimes they'll forget to teach it to you. So this is something that I also tell the students. It's like, you know what, I can't remember everything off the top of my head. The best way for you to learn new things is just to keep talking to me, ask me new questions all the time. And sometimes it will spark me to remember something that is important to teach you. And so that's, yeah.
What about you, Ha? Is there anything you think that we can improve on?
Yeah,
That the program can improve
there
on?
was one thing. I mean, most of the trainers that I had at the hospital were great, but there was like a select few that I could tell just did not want to teach. And I mean, because of that, I felt like my training was slightly compromised. And then it's also discouraging. Like it's like you don't want to like you feel like you're a burden to them, so then you want to back up and like not receive their training. And I even like my first job like out of the CLS program, like one of my coworkers straight up said, "Hate training," and she said it in front of the students. I'm like, oh, that's kind of terrible.
Wow.
So
I think she wanted them to hear.
I think so, but
Sounds
it's just
like it.
like, yeah, maybe just make sure that the trainers want to train. That way, it's like a a happy
Yeah, that's a
balance.
big one.
Yeah,
Or there should, if they don't want to, there should be some kind of incentive. Maybe like a differential or something, like a little pay bonus.
yeah.
I'd gladly, or like overtime to prepare. That'd be great.
Yeah, or like you don't have
I
to.
think
Yeah.
that's something.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Ha. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just adding on to incentives. Maybe like, oh yeah, you don't have to do inventory this week if you teach or something. Stuff like that.
Nice.
Yeah, I feel like inventory is not fun.
That's funny. For me, the prize would be you only have to do inventory all week.
Oh,
Yeah. Well, it's because
And
I
then when-
actually I've automated not automated, but like streamlined our inventory system. Like how like there's like barcodes and stuff. You have to like write the lot the reagent type, lot number, expiration date. There's some barcodes on the Immucore reagents where that information is on the barcode. So you just tell Excel to scan it, and you can reference these like lists, and it'll tell you, when I scan a barcode, it'll say this is anti-A1, this is the lot number, this is the expiration date. And if you scan the wrong barcode, it'll highlight the whole thing red. And the thing is, I did that, and people are still like, when they see the red, like they try to like force it through. Like, no, stop, you did something wrong. Rescan the barcode. But yeah, like that stuff
I didn't know you can do that.
is pretty cool. It's pretty cool. That's like my magnum opus. I'm really proud of it.
well
My
then, yeah,
baby.
that's your punishment. If you don't want to train, you don't get to do inventory.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Sean
You
gets
don't
like a
do inventory.
straight jacket. No.
Yeah, and then
He's
you'll
doing
have
it.
me, and then you have me going in there and mess up all
Oh,
your
that would ruin him.
spreadsheets
Oh.
in real life.
Don't copy and paste. Anything but that.
Yeah. So, what advice would you give to someone who is about to start CLS training program?
The good news is that you're already in. So for the whole year,
Yeah, honestly,
Just-
that's the hard part.
be on your best behavior.
Yeah.
Like Sun said, treat it like a year-long job interview.
Oh.
So just because by at the end of the journey is a job, so just be impressionable. Do your best.
Yeah, especially if you have like a specific like department in mind.
Yeah.
Make sure you're on your bestest of behaviors.
No, but even when people ask like,
Yeah.
"Oh, what department you want to be in?" just say that you like everything. Don't say you like if you're in
that's a good
hematology,
one,
don't
yeah.
say that you like micro, because then hematologists are like, "Well, what are you doing here?" Yeah, just don't get too comfortable. If you're not normally a social person, be a little more social. Just a good morning to all your trainers
So
goes a
you
long
mean,
way.
like, So you mean
Okay.
don't be comfortable as in like step out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, like
Like don't get complacent or whatever.
yeah, just out for a year because
Okay.
you want a job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
So like get to know them and then let them get to know you, because at the end there might be position opening, and who knows, you might be one of the people that they could, considering. And they kind of evaluate that throughout the year already. They see how you progress through the year. They see how you learn, how you interacting with your coworker. So that's kind of the beauty, I guess, in the way of the training programs, where if there is an opening, you may not have to look for a job after you pass the exam. So just keep that in
Quite
mind.
nice, yeah.
But
Yeah.
also, oh, go ahead. But also remember the CLS community is very tight knit. So even if you don't plan on staying at your hospital after, be careful because people know people and they might ask, hey, how was this person during training? And if you
Yeah.
get a negative review, they're not gonna, endorse you. So be careful.
Or they become like an inspector and then they come around and they remember you and then now you're in trouble. They start looking really hard for little citations. It can happen. It can happen.
Well, okay. Well, thank you. And that's it for today's episode. Thank you for sharing your valuable experience, the reflections on the programs. And I'm sure that this insight is going to be very useful for the upcoming classes and for people who are thinking about joining the programs. And before we conclude for today, if there is anything you'd like to ask our guests or you want us to bring the previous guest back, please leave that in the comment down below. If there's any other questions you'd like to know about the program, you can leave that in the comment down below as well. We'll be replying and reading all those comments. And as always, your blood tell you the story of your health. Thanks for watching. Bye.